So in today's video, I'm going to talk about one of the most forgotten and overlooked pieces of guitar gear, and that is the wonderful guitar pick. Now, if you've been following this channel, you know that I've actually talked about picks a couple of times. And if you're one of my students watching this, you know that I frequently complain about picks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about picks, why I prefer thicker picks, and I'm also going to kind of show you my new baby, at least for the time being. So maybe you've noticed that a lot of your favorite guitar players, or guys who just absolutely shred like crazy, like say Guthrie Govan or John Petrucci or all of these other guys, play really, really thick picks. And this is something that I haven't seen a lot of discourse on, but it's something that I wanted to talk about because a lot of the time my students will ask me about picks and different picks, what they should like, what they should try, da-da-da-da. It's obviously a very, 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 very personal decision what kind of pick you want to play and what kind of suits your picking style. But in general, I would argue that playing with a thicker pick, and by thick I mean 1.5 to 2 millimeters, it's one of the best things that you can do for your playing, and in this video I'm going to kind of tell you why. So the first and biggest benefit I find with thicker picks, and right now I'm using 2 millimeter John Petrucci signature flow picks. They're made out of Ultex, so they're relatively slow wearing. Don't quote me on this because I'm really fickle about picks and I might change to something different, but right now I'm really, really loving these guys here. They're kind of like a Jazz 3XL with a little bit fatter of a tip, but with 2 millimeter picks, the biggest thing that I notice is they are so much more comfortable to hold in my hand. And the reason for this is that the further away your thumb can be from your pointer finger, the more relaxing it is to grip and pinch something. The thinner it is, the closer that these guys have to be, the more strain it's going to put on your joints and on the muscles of your hand. So having a 2 millimeter pick, or even a 1.5, will help a significant amount versus something like, say you're playing a Tortex 73 or something like that. Having that thicker base means that your hand can be more relaxed and grip it a little bit lighter, which is a huge benefit I find in terms of long practice sessions and also in terms of just not tensing up your hand. Because if you're tense here, that's going to start spreading up your forearm. So a huge benefit to thicker guitar picks is being able to grip them easier with a more relaxed hand. Now, the second point about this, which is something that I think a lot of people, there's misconceptions about, but people think that you can maybe play faster with a thinner pick, and not necessarily like thin, it would be a heavy gauge pick, like say a 1 millimeter or a 1.14 millimeter pick. And there's this conception that that's faster because it's smaller and it's easier to move. But it's something that's actually kind of, and again, there are people who play crazy fast with thin picks, don't get me wrong. There are people who play medium to thick picks, and they can absolutely rip. But if you think about it, the thicker your pick is, if I am between two strings, I have to move the pick less to get to the next string, just by nature of the fact that the pick is taking up more space between the strings. So I'm shrinking the gaps between the string. I don't have to move as much with my right hand, and I'm able to kind of get through. Now you could argue that it makes it a little bit trickier to navigate through the strings, even though they're closer together, because you have to move a bit thicker of a material, and that is something that is a fair argument. But I find that the benefit of not having to move as much and just making slight adjustments when I went up to the 2 millimeter pick, that was the kind of difference that I noticed, is that it was easier to play rather than harder to play. It didn't feel like I was trying to get around with a boat or a spoon. It just felt like everything was a little bit shorter and closer together. Now the third huge, huge, huge benefit of thick picks is that when the pick has more mass to it, it will pass through the string easier. So this is super beneficial when playing because if you think about it, your guitar strings reach a certain threshold before the pick passes through. You will get through the string faster if you have a thicker pick with more mass pushing it out of the way than if you have a pick that has give to it. If you have give, there's going to be a little bit of energy transfer between the two, and it will take longer for the pick to actually leave the string. Now, this is super, super desirable if we're playing lead guitar or anything with single note lines. And it's also good for striking clean chords where all of the notes sound at once. Because the pick is able to just push right through the string. The string is doing the give rather than the string giving a little bit and the pick giving a little bit. And now my final kind of point that I want to make in defense of thick picks is that thick picks are so much more versatile than thin picks, in that you can simulate a thinner pick with a thick pick, but you cannot replicate a thicker pick with a thin pick. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to trade to my acoustic guitar just to demonstrate this, because one of the places that thin picks tend to be loved is if you want a really strummy sound on an acoustic guitar. You want to hear some of the pick across the strings. And now to give you an example of what I mean by that, I'm going to play one hitting kind of hard, going for a direct, full, boomy sound, and show you what that sounds like. So that might sound like this. Now, if I wanted to get more pick sound in there, or make it sound like it was a thinner pick, all I need to do is hold my pick less firmly. So what I mean by that is, rather than hitting with it held firm, so that it's just going right through the strings, I'm gonna hold it lighter and let it kind of flam across the strings. So you get that kind. So here's firm, here's not firm. You can hear that kind of rate. So now, to give you a demonstration of how I'm going to demonstrate that, I'm going to do one round of a chord progression, and I'm going to play with a firm grip, so it's super direct, super full sounding. You're not getting a lot of pick noise. So for example, and then I'll do one where I hold the pick less firmly so that the pick has a little bit of play, and then you can hear the pick scraping across the strings more. So getting more of that pick noise in. So here's with a firm grip, and then the second time through I'm going to do with a softer grip, mimicking the sound and feel of a thinner pick. So full. Now thin. So you can mimic the super strummy, picky sound of a thin pick with a thick pick, but you could never get the same dig that you get from a thick pick from a thin pick. So this is not to say that one way is better than the other, or there's better and worse in this. There's so much room for personal taste, but there's definitely a reason that most kind of shreddy, fast guitar players, or just a lot of professional guitar players in general, tend to opt for a 1.5 to 2 millimeter pick. Just because you get that flexibility with the thick picks that you don't get with the thin picks. They're going to help you play fast. They're going to help you have a less tense right arm. And they can also mimic the sound of a thinner pick if that's something that you're going for. Whereas thin picks cannot mimic thick picks. So anyways, I'm kind of curious because I'm a real prima donna with picks. I've gone through a whole bunch of different picks in my life. My current kind of mainstay is this John Petrucci Flow. It's a 2 millimeter pick. It's kind of like a Jazz 3XL shape with a little bit more rounded of a point. It's made out of Altex. So far, I'm only a couple days in with this pick, but so far I'm absolutely loving it, and it seems like the material's nice, durable, and gets a nice kind of funky sound. But let me know in the comments what picks you're using and what you swear by, and if you agree with me or disagree with me, because again, there is a whole bunch of room for subjectivity, but almost every time I recommend my students try either a 1.5 millimeter pick or a 2 millimeter pick, they say that it's life-changing and they love it. So if you haven't tried them, I'd recommend it, but do let me know what you're using in the comments below. I'd be super curious to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you could know. If you wanted to take a guitar lesson with me, I have a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you want to support me and the free educational content that I put out here on the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon down below. All of my patrons get early access to videos as well as cool behind-the-scenes sneak peeks at music that I'm writing or working on. If you were looking for a different way to support the channel, you could purchase my ebook or my video course all about triads, which is also linked down in the description. It's a great way to get some deeper educational content than I can post in a 10-minute YouTube video. And last but not least, I've got new videos coming out every single Monday and every single Thursday. So I hope I'll see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.